to Deep Sleep Stories. If these stories have helped you through restless nights, please leave a review. Reviews are what help this podcast grow, reach more listeners, and stay alive. Without them, even something meaningful can slowly disappear. So if this show has brought you comfort, that small act truly helps keep it going. Now, settle in, and let's begin.
Welcome to Deep Sleep Stories, and tonight you are invited to drift softly into the old stone heart of Prague, where a warm tram moves through silver rain, past glowing windows, quiet bridges, and streets that seem to remember every gentle footstep. Let your body settle now. Let the day loosen its hold. There is nothing you need to solve here, nothing you need to carry forward. The world outside can continue in its own way, while you rest in this small, peaceful shelter of sound and imagination. Feel the weight of your body supported. Feel your shoulders soften. Feel your breath arriving and leaving, slow as rain sliding down glass. In your mind, the evening is cool and tender. Prague is wrapped in a soft gray-blue dusk, the kind that makes every lamp appear warmer, every window more golden, every cobbled street more ancient and kind. Rain falls steadily, not in a rush, but in a patient, delicate rhythm. It taps on awnings, whispers through narrow lanes, darkens the rooftops, and gathers in bright little pools between the stones. You are safe here. You are warm. Somewhere nearby, a tram bell rings gently, not loud enough to startle, only clear enough to invite. Its sound floats through the rainy air like a small silver note. The tram is waiting at the stop, lit from within, its windows misted at the edges. It promises nothing urgent. It goes nowhere that must be reached quickly. It simply moves slowly and faithfully through the old city. Take one deeper breath now. And as you breathe out, let yourself step back from the world of doing. The story will carry on for you. A traveler stood beneath the shelter of a tram stop just as the evening rain began to grow softer, finer, more dreamlike. He wore a wool coat the color of river stones and held no heavy bag. Only a small folded map he no longer needed. The streets of Prague had a way of guiding those who walked gently, and he had learned by dusk that it was better not to hurry them. The tram arrived with a sigh of brakes and a small bright ringing of its bell. Its red sides shone under the rain, reflecting street lamps in long, trembling streaks. When the doors opened, warm air breathed outward, carrying the faint smell of polished wood, damp wool, old metal, and something sweet from a paper-wrapped pastry in someone's lap. The traveler stepped inside. There were only a few passengers. An elderly woman in a soft green scarf sat near the front, her gloved hands folded over a basket of flowers wrapped in brown paper. A young man with sleepy eyes leaned beside the window, his violin case resting against his knees. Two children, already heavy with evening tiredness, sat close to their mother, watching raindrops race down the glass. The traveler chose a seat near the middle, beside a wide window clouded with mist. He wiped a small circle clear with his sleeve and looked out. The tram began to move. It rolled forward with a gentle rocking, its wheels singing quietly along the shining tracks. Outside, the city drifted by in slow layers. First came the narrow street, with its bookshop windows and hanging lanterns. Then a bakery, nearly closed for the night, where a woman in a white apron placed the last loaves behind the glass. Then a doorway framed with carved stone where rainwater dripped from a small iron balcony above. The traveler rested his hands in his lap and let the motion of the tram settle him. There was no need to count the stops, no need to decide where to get off. The tram seemed to know an older route than the one printed on any sign, a route that followed not only rails but memory, moonlight, and the quiet wishes of those who were tired. The rain slid down the window in wandering paths. Beyond it, Prague glowed and softened. Every tower, every roof line, every arch and chimney seemed to blur gently at the edges, as though the city had been painted in watercolor and left beneath a soft, patient sky. The tram turned a corner, and the old buildings leaned close on either side. Their windows were lit in warm squares, each one holding a private little world. In one window, a candle flickered beside a vase of white tulips. In another, a cat stretched across the back of a chair, its tail moving with slow satisfaction. Higher up, behind lace curtains, a lamp glowed beside shelves of books. And the traveler imagined someone reading there, turning pages in the rain. The tram bell chimed again. At the next stop, an old man climbed aboard carrying an umbrella that dripped a neat little circle onto the floor. He shook it once apologetically, then took the seat across from the traveler. His face was lined and peaceful, and his hat was dusted with rain. "Evening?" he said softly. The traveler nodded. "A peaceful one." The old man smiled as though this was exactly the right answer. Outside, the tram moved toward the river. The streets opened slowly and the darkness widened. The Vltava appeared beyond the rain, broad and black and shining, carrying reflections of the city in long, broken ribbons. Lamps along the embankment trembled on the water. The bridges reached across the river like quiet thoughts, stone arches resting in shadow, statues watching the rain with patient faces. The tram ran alongside the river for a while. Inside, no one spoke. The silence was not empty. It was full of soft sounds. The hush of rain on the roof, the murmur of wheels on rails, the tiny creak of leather seats, the distant breathing of passengers growing drowsy. The elderly woman with the flowers closed her eyes. The violinist's head dipped slightly forward. The children leaned against their mother, their reflections pale and sleepy in the glass. The traveler watched the river. A boat moved slowly beneath one of the bridges, its deck lights glowing like a string of small honey-colored stars. Rain touched the water around it, making little silver rings that appeared and disappeared before the eye could follow them. Above the far bank, the castle rose through mist, pale and immense, its towers softened by cloud. It seemed less like a place built by hands than a dream the hill had been holding for centuries. The tram bell rang once more. It crossed near the old quarter, climbing gently into streets where the rain gathered in the grooves between cobblestones. The wheels made a deeper sound there. A steady rhythm like a lullaby played on hidden strings beneath the city. The traveler felt his thoughts grow slower. The map in his pocket became unnecessary, almost unreal. He had forgotten which hotel he had left, which square he had meant to visit, which hour the clock might be showing. Only the tram remained, and the rain, and the gentle golden world beyond the window. Soon the tram entered a district of narrow lanes and quiet courtyards. The buildings here were painted in faded creams, pale greens, soft pinks, and old yellows, all deepened by the rain. Small signs swung above doorways: a key, a painted moon, a loaf of bread, a bluebird. Some were for shops, some for inns, and some seemed to belong to places that might only open after midnight to those who were dreaming. At a stop, beneath a leaning chestnut tree, the elderly woman rose with her basket of flowers. The old man across from the traveler stood at once to help her. She thanked him in a voice as soft as folded linen. As she stepped down from the tram, one white flower loosened from the basket and fell onto the seat she had left behind. The traveler picked it up, intending to return it, but the doors closed gently, and the tram began to move. The flower rested in his hand. It was not a rose, nor a lily, nor anything he could name. Its petals were shaped like small white bells, and it carried the faintest scent of rain-soaked gardens. He held it carefully, feeling that it had been left not by accident, but as a quiet gift. The old man noticed and smiled. "Some flowers prefer to travel," he said. The traveler looked at the bloom, then out at the city, and felt no need to ask what that meant. In this tram, on this rainy evening, a sentence did not need to be explained to be understood. The tram continued. It passed a small square where the stones shone like dark mirrors. In the middle stood a fountain, its water mixing with the rain. A statue above it held out one hand, and the falling drops collected on its bronze fingers before slipping away. Around the square, cafes glowed from within. A waiter in a black waistcoat drew curtains across a window. A woman in a red hat paused beneath an arcade to look up at the sky. A dog shook itself beneath a lamppost, then trotted on with great importance. Everything moved slowly. Everything belonged. As the tram circled the square, the old astronomical clock came into view at the end of a narrow street. Its face was dimly lit, deep blue and gold, circled with symbols that seemed to measure not only hours but seasons, tides, dreams, the quiet turning of the heart. No crowd stood before it now. No voices gathered in the rain. The clock watched over the empty stones with calm, ancient patience. The traveler felt for a moment that time itself had become gentle, not gone, not stopped, only softened. The tram drew away from the square and entered another long street. The rain thickened again, tapping the roof with a fuller sound. The passengers settled deeper into their seats. The mother placed a scarf over the sleeping children. The violinist opened his eyes briefly, then closed them again. The old man took off his hat and rested it on his knee. The traveler turned the white flower slowly between his fingers. At the next bend, the tram passed beneath a row of trees whose wet branches brushed softly against the upper windows. Leaves, dark and gleaming, pressed for a moment against the glass like hands waving farewell. Beyond them, a church stood tucked between buildings, its doors closed, its steps shining. From somewhere inside came the low, distant sound of an organ. It was not a concert, not a ceremony, just a few notes rising and fading in the dimness. They seemed to drift into the tram and settle among the passengers, making the warm light warmer, the rain softer, the evening deeper. The tram slowed. For a little while it seemed to move through more than one Prague. There was the Prague outside the window, with its streets and bridges and lamps, and there was another Prague behind it, quiet and moon-pale, made of stories told beside winter fires. In that hidden city, cobblers stitched shoes for wandering stars. Bakers left rolls on windowsills for house spirits. Stone saints stepped down from bridges after midnight to warm their hands over kitchen stoves, and trams, perhaps, traveled routes known only to the rain. The traveler was not surprised by any of this. Drowsiness had made him wise in a simple way. He no longer needed the world to be divided into the ordinary and the magical. In the soft rhythm of the tram, everything became part of one slow unfolding. The iron tracks, the flower in his hand, the old man's kind smile, the river, the clock, the rain. A little later, the tram climbed toward a quieter part of the city. The streets grew wider, the buildings more shadowed, the lamps farther apart. Here and there, gardens appeared behind iron fences. Wet leaves shivered under the rain. Ivy climbed old walls. A lantern hung outside a gate, swinging faintly in the wind. The traveler looked through his small, clear circle on the window and saw, beyond one gate, a courtyard filled with silver puddles. In the center stood a tree without leaves, and from every branch hung tiny glass ornaments shaped like stars. They caught the lamplight and the rain, glimmering softly. Beneath the tree, a fox stood perfectly still. Its fur was deep red, almost copper in the glow. For an instant, it looked directly at the tram. Then the courtyard slipped away behind them, and the fox was gone. The traveler blinked slowly. No one else seemed to have noticed. Or perhaps everyone had noticed and understood that such sightings were best left undisturbed. The tram bell rang again, quieter than before. At the next stop, the violinist rose. He lifted his case, nodded to the driver, and stepped down into the rain. But before the doors closed, he turned beneath the shelter of the stop, opened his case, and drew out his violin. The tram began to move just as he placed the instrument beneath his chin. A melody followed them. It was faint, softened by rain and distance, but clear enough to weave itself into the rhythm of the wheels. The tune rose and fell, like someone remembering a happy day from long ago. It passed through the glass, through the warm air, through the traveler's thoughts, and then gradually faded behind them. The old man across the aisle sighed with contentment. "Some songs know the way home," he murmured. The traveler nodded because he had begun to understand that this tram gathered small, peaceful things as it traveled. A flower, a melody, the reflection of a bridge, the scent of rain, the glow of a window, the quiet company of strangers. It carried them all without hurry. Outside, the road curved downhill, and the tram returned toward the river by a different way. The rooftops opened, and the city spread below in a misty bowl of lights. Spires rose like dark needles into the low clouds. Rain silvered the slates. Smoke from chimneys leaned and disappeared. Far below, the Vltava turned through the city, calm and shining. The traveler felt as though the tram were gliding, not on tracks now, but along the edge of a dream. A soft warmth spread through him. It began in his hands where the white flower rested, then moved up his arms, across his chest, and down into his legs. The gentle sway of the tram made it easy to let go. His thoughts no longer arrived in sentences. They came as images. Lamplight on rain, a fox beneath glass stars, a clock face glowing blue, a child asleep against a mother's sleeve. He breathed slowly. The tram breathed with him. When they reached the river again, the rain had become very fine, almost mist. The tram crossed a bridge with quiet confidence. Beneath them, the water held every light and loosened it into long streams of gold and pearl. The statues along the older bridge nearby stood in a row, dark and solemn and kind. Their stone faces were lifted toward the rain, as though they had been waiting all day for this cool blessing. Halfway across, the tram seemed to slow. The traveler looked out and saw the castle on the hill, its windows glowing faintly through the mist. The great cathedral rose beside it, its towers dissolving into cloud. For a moment, the whole hill seemed to float above the river. No sound came from it, no movement, only a peaceful stillness, vast and protective. The old man put his hat back on. "This is the best part," he said softly. And it was. The tram glided over the bridge, as though crossing from evening into night. The city behind them grew quiet. The city ahead opened like a secret. The rain became a curtain, and beyond it the traveler saw a street he was sure had not been there before. It was narrow and gently curving, lit by lanterns that hung from wrought iron hooks. No cars moved along it, no footsteps sounded. The tram turned onto the street easily, as though it had done so every night for 100 years. The rails shone ahead. Small shops lined the way. Their windows were dark, but each held something illuminated by a single small lamp. In one window there were painted wooden birds with folded wings. In another, a display of blue glass bottles filled with what looked like captured evening sky. A clockmaker's shop showed rows of pocket watches, all set to different times, all ticking softly enough that the traveler imagined he could hear them through the glass. Then came a shop with no sign at all. In its window stood a model tram, small and red, traveling in a circle through a tiny version of Prague made from paper, wood, and light. There were miniature bridges, miniature towers, miniature trees brushed with rain. And seated inside the tiny tram were tiny passengers, an old woman with flowers, a violinist, a mother with sleeping children, an old man with a hat, and a traveler holding a white flower. The traveler smiled, but not with surprise. It was a calm smile, a dream smile. The tram continued down the lantern street. At the far end stood an archway covered in vines. Rain dripped from the leaves in slow silver beads. The tram passed beneath it, and for a moment, the whole carriage smelled of green gardens after rain. Beyond the archway, the street widened into a quiet hilltop park. The tram stopped. The doors opened with their familiar soft sigh. No one spoke, but the traveler understood that this was his stop. He rose, still holding the flower. The old man nodded to him, kind and sleepy-eyed. "Leave what you no longer need," he said. "Take only what is light." The traveler stepped down. The rain in the park was soft enough to feel almost like breath. The tram doors closed behind him, but the tram did not leave at once. It waited, glowing warmly on the tracks, while he looked around. The park was small and peaceful. A path of pale stones led between wet lawns and dark shrubs. At the top of the hill stood a wooden bench beneath a chestnut tree. Beyond the bench, Prague stretched below, dim and luminous, its lamps shining through mist, its river bending through the sleeping city. The traveler walked slowly to the bench. Each step felt unhurried and complete. Rain touched his hair, his coat, his hands, but he was not cold. He felt instead as though the rain were rinsing away the dust of many days, the old worries, the half-finished thoughts, the small tight places inside the mind where stress had gathered unnoticed. When he reached the bench, he sat. For a long while, he simply watched the city breathe. Clouds moved above the rooftops. The river shone and darkened. Somewhere below, the tram bell rang again, distant now like a memory. The traveler opened his hand and looked at the white flower. Its petals held tiny drops of rain, each one reflecting a pinprick of lamplight. He thought of the old woman who had carried it. He thought of all the people in the tram, each moving quietly through their own evening, each held for a little while by the same warm light, the same rocking motion, the same patient rain. It seemed to him that rest was like that, not something one had to earn or chase, something that arrived gently when there was room for it. Beside the bench at the foot of the chestnut tree, there was a little hollow in the earth, sheltered by roots. The traveler leaned down and placed the white flower there. A single drop of rain fell from a leaf and touched its petals. The flower glowed, not brightly, not like fire, only with a soft pearly light, enough to make the roots of the tree visible, enough to silver the wet grass, enough to show that something kind had been received. The traveler sat back and let his eyes grow heavy. Behind him the tram bell chimed, He turned just in time to see it begin to move away, rolling slowly along its hidden track through the park. Its windows glowed. He could see the old man inside and the mother with her sleeping children in the empty seat where he had been. The tram followed the curve of the hill, passed beneath the vine-covered archway, and disappeared into the rain. For a moment, the rails remained shining. Then they faded too, leaving only the path, the bench, the tree, and the city below. The traveler did not wonder how he would return. He did not worry about morning. The night had become simple. The rain fell. The city rested. The hill held him gently above the world. After a while, he rose and followed the pale stone path away from the bench. It curved through the park toward a small inn nestled beneath the trees. Warm light shone from its windows. A wooden sign above the door showed a painted moon sleeping in a teacup. Inside, the inn was quiet. A fire burned low in the hearth. Boots dried near the door. A sleepy cat opened one eye from a cushion, and then, deciding the traveler belonged to the night, closed it again. There was no need to speak. A room key waited on the desk with a small folded note beside it. The note said only that everything was ready. The traveler climbed the stairs. The hallway smelled faintly of cedar wood and rain. At the end was a little room beneath the roof, with sloping walls, a narrow bed, and a window looking out over the misty city. A pitcher of water stood on the table. A blanket lay folded at the foot of the bed, thick and soft and blue as twilight. He removed his coat and hung it by the door. He set his shoes neatly beneath the chair. He crossed to the window and looked out one last time. Far below, a red tram moved through the streets, tiny now, bright and quiet, carrying its warm square of light through the rain. It turned a corner and vanished between the buildings, but the traveler felt no sadness. Some journeys did not end. They simply became softer and softer until they were part of sleep. He pulled the curtains halfway closed. He lay down beneath the blanket. The rain tapped lightly above him on the roof tiles. The sound was close and comforting. It gathered around the room, around the bed, around his breathing. The city outside blurred into darkness and gold. The river moved unseen. The bridges rested. The clock kept its gentle turning. The fox in the courtyard curled its tail around its paws beneath the starry tree. And the traveler slept. Now the rain grows softer. The tram is farther away. Its bell is only a small silver sound in the distance, fading into the hush of the old city. The warm carriage continues on, through narrow lanes and past glowing windows, carrying flowers, songs, quiet thoughts, and dreams. It asks nothing from anyone. It simply moves with the rain. Let your own body be still now. Let your hands rest. Let your jaw soften. Let your breath become slow and easy, like water moving under a bridge. There is no need to follow the story any farther. The tram knows the way. The city is peaceful. The room is warm. The night is kind. Outside, rain falls on rooftops, on towers, on cobblestones, on leaves. Inside sleep opens gently like a door with golden light beyond it. You may drift now, deeper, softer, farther into rest. Good night, dear traveler. Sleep well.